Once you go down this path of trying to control everything, where does it end? We want to be free. The people who would like to censor and all these monstrous organizations, they're doing their thing, and we're doing our thing. We're just building a new system and enabling people to join them as they wish. The majority of the internet is controlled by 5 corporations. Open protocols give us that chance to kind of fight back and resist this. The bar for usability is being set by these multi-billion-dollar companies who've been at it for, 10 years plus.
Miljan, is it me or is the world going crazy?
I guess those two are not mutually exclusive, right? But the world's getting crazier by the day for sure.
Yeah.
More interesting, more chaotic.
Yeah, it feels like we're at like not a hard fork, but like a fork in the road. And there's things that are incredibly exciting, powerful, and optimistic, and then you have other things. Like I originally reached out, it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. You were on a little vacation, so we scheduled it for this, but it was to talk about the UK 8 verification laws, censorship, and the importance of open protocols like Nostr. But things have just escalated since then. They want to ban VPNs now.
Totally. I mean, once you go down this path of trying to control everything, like where does it end? You kind of really need to, close all the exits, as they like to say, all the escape routes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it ends, I don't want to smirk here, but it ends typically with camps, suffering, mass death, if you continue down the path. That's why it's important to leverage the tools that we have today in terms of open protocols and the communications technology to get the message out. That's the big
Agreed.
That's the big question I have is like, are we at a point in human history where we have all these tools at our fingertips? Can we actually use them to prevent, at least in Western society, the devolution into pure Orwellian socialist, communist, authoritarian hellscape?
Well, the open protocols give us that chance, right? Like if we're using the legacy closed systems, we just don't have a chance, right? Like, because that's a single throat to choke. If any government makes any new rule that forbids, certain type of speech, if you're dealing with a closed platform, it's the end of the story. They'll just have to tell X or whoever, close this down, and companies need to comply. And that's the end of it. That content already exists, only exists behind their kind of wall, in their walled garden. Since they fully control it, they certainly can comply, and the governments know that. When it comes to open protocols, I don't think we automatically win by default just because we're using open protocols. Open protocols give us that chance to kind of fight back and resist this. But there's still quite a bit of work that needs to be done by a lot of people to win, so to speak. And I'm not like super gloomy about all of these things that we're seeing everywhere. I kind of look at it more from the point of view of, hey, this is a test for us. This is something that's giving us an opportunity to grow, to step up, assert our own sovereignty over our online lives, over our wealth, our money, our transactions, and so forth. There are a number of us who build tools for people who wish to step up and use them. And like I said, we get that opportunity, and it's up to us to see how we're going to use the tools to assert our sovereignty.
Yeah. As somebody on the bleeding edge of the open protocol that is Nostr, what are some of the unique ways you've observed people not only leveraging Primal, but just leveraging Nostr to really stick a needle in the eye of censors, or creating cool applications that leverage Nostr relays in some way to create robust applications that are very hard to censor?
Yeah, I don't even think it's about sticking a needle in the eye of anyone. It's just like we want to be free. The people who out there who would like to censor and all these, monstrous organizations, they're doing their thing, and we're doing our thing. We're not necessarily fighting the existing system. We're just building a new system and enabling people to join them as they wish, right? And to answer your question, lots of new stuff being built all the time. A lot of it is really exciting. Not even talking about Primal. So outside of Primal, the cool things we've seen on Nostr recently is, for example, Jack Dorsey's BitChat app, which he vibe coded over a weekend, which uses Bluetooth enabled mesh network to communicate with devices that are in close proximity to you. Close proximity meaning, 20, 30 meters, maybe 100 feet or so. And then, you can kind of relay messages directly to one another without even needing an internet connection. And then when any one of these users gets an internet connection, they can, upload those signed messages to any relay and then replicate them further. So this is a really neat use case, which I think this kind of network topology, I think, is extremely appropriate for Nostr. Nostr is perfect for this because the protocol is so simple and it's comprised just out of signed messages. And each of these signed messages can exist on its own. It kind of has meaning. Just each individual message on its own kind of stands on the firm legs, so to speak. So the more of these messages you have, the more sense you can make out of the network, and you can broadcast them, to those that are close to you. You can broadcast them to relays. You can index them, and so forth. If they get deleted from any relays, you can repost them to other relays. This type of architecture is extremely resilient and hard to stop. So I really love this as the foundation for the new internet. What we're trying to do here with Nostr, by the way, for those who might not be paying attention on a daily basis, we're trying to fix the internet. We're trying to, fix all of the broken incentives and the kind of the current predicament we're in, which is that basically the majority of the internet is controlled by 5 corporations, right? So this is about building an internet worth having, and we are well on the way to doing that with Nostr. So, for example, this BitChat application came out of nowhere. Like nobody was really thinking in these terms, prior to Dorsey launching it after a weekend of vibe coding. Then, of course, Dorsey launched the iOS version. Then Kale very quickly vibe coded an Android version. And I think both of these BitChat applications are now in production, like in full app stores. So App Store on iOS and Play Store on Android. They're open source and they continue to be developed. And it's a beautiful example of what can be done just by a few guys and then adopted by a bunch of people and who wish to kind of take control over their communications. So that's one great example. Another one is the work that Alex Gleason is doing with Shakespeare. I think you can access it at shakespeare.diy. So basically, it's an AI vibe coding tool that enables anyone to build Nostr apps with just prompting in English. And what's different about this tool compared to many other vibe coding tools is that it leverages the open Nostr network. So there are a whole bunch of problems that you already have kind of pre-solved for you. Like you don't need a backend because you can rely on the public relay infrastructure that already exists on Nostr, which is formidable, by the way. I think this doesn't get maybe mentioned enough. People compare Nostr to other networks, and often it's like apples to oranges, specifically because of the fact that anyone can run any part of Nostr infrastructure. That's not a very common occurrence in these type of competing networks. But not only that it can run, there's so much evidence that like this is being run. Like any part of the Nostr infrastructure is being stood up by a bunch of different people, sort of independently without any central planning or control. So when it comes to relays, last time I looked, there were almost 3,000 active relays of just like people and companies and projects. Whoever wants to stand up a relay can. So we end up with this public relay infrastructure that can be used by anyone to publish content, but also to do interesting things like build, vibe-coded apps that don't need a backend. And then you get Nostr identity and the web of trust for free, which is all open out there. And of course, you get payments because like Bitcoin micropayments are kind of blended in with Nostr. So you have these incredible building blocks, all of which are open. And then you get this new generation of AI tools, which are still a little janky, but getting better, where you can vibe code whatever comes to mind and kind of plug into this network. Try doing any of this with a closed system. Try doing any of this with X or any of the other closed platforms. You just can't.
Yeah. And we're seeing it particularly in the context of BitChat with the Android Play Store, Google Play Store. I've seen Callie posting a lot about the back and forth he's had with the Play Store.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm sure it wasn't hilarious for him as he was going through this, but it's just like hilariously bad how these systems are and how much gatekeeping they're doing and how inept they are at this. Sorry, I cut you off, Marty. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, there's profanity in the name of the app.
Yes.
No, but you brought up relays, which is very promising to see because I'm having flashbacks to Nostr in Riga, Latvia last year, where I vividly recall you on stage with Michael Tidwell. And I believe the conversation is who will run the relays. And so I think you mentioned it. There are 3,000 relays being spun up by individuals and companies. I guess anchoring back to that conversation on stage in Riga around this time last year, has the sort of network of relays surprised to the upside is where you expected it to be when you were having that conversation?
Yes, it has so far. But to be fair, the conversation was like, how does this scale to kind of global scale, right? Mm-hmm. So there is definitely the ecosystem that's sprouting around Nostr that kind of contains app developers. There are probably 200 different apps that are built on Nostr, the relay infrastructure, the indexers, the media hosting services, all of these things are extremely impressive. Like they are definitely surprising to the upside. So when people look at Nostr and compare it to other networks, usually the only metric that's used for comparison is the user numbers. And Nostr user numbers are, quite a bit smaller than something like, let's say, BlueSky. Like orders of magnitude, we're looking at, and by the way, these numbers are not super precise. We do some indexing and we do web of trust analysis to understand which accounts on the network are bots, of which there are millions. So we don't want to count them as kind of humans, but we use web of trust heuristics to figure out active humans. And we're probably looking at maybe 70, 80,000 users who are active on Nostr. So this is a very small network in that regard when compared to something like, let's say, BlueSky, which measures millions of users. But these are apples to oranges comparisons because BlueSky is ran by one company, even though they define their protocol. I think it's called AT protocol. They run the only instance, or by far the biggest instance. I think there's something called Black Sky 2. That's a much, much smaller one. But essentially, they control everything that happens on BlueSky, including your account. So basically, if they decide you don't want to exist, you shouldn't exist, you're gone. Right?
The vice president experienced this.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that happened to JD Vance, right?
Yeah.
I think like some of these things are hilarious. People show up on BlueSky and post something like there are only 2 genders, just as a feeler, and they're gone. they get immediately removed. It's like, oh guys, this is not even up for debate on this network. And the backstory, of course, is that a lot of people who got upset by Elon's takeover of Twitter moved over to BlueSky. So that's kind of their user base, and those users are demanding censorship basically from the people who are running BlueSky. That's kind of the way they like to operate online. So, and the BlueSky leadership is happy to oblige. So that's what we have there. So going back to your question, you can't really compare Nostr to BlueSky in that sense. Nostr, in my mind, has no competitors. If we're looking at a truly self-sovereign network where all the users hold the keys to their online existence, which cannot be revoked by anyone, no single Nostr service provider has power over your existence on Nostr, over your ability to, post or view content. That's very different from all of the competing networks. So we have people who hold their keys, and then we have, as I mentioned previously, many people who run the infrastructure without any central planning or coordination. Both of those requirements need to be met, in my mind, for something to be a truly decentralized network. Otherwise, it's similar to comparing Bitcoin to an altcoin. Yeah, you might be holding your private key on Solana, but there are a couple of guys that run that network, and you exist there at their pleasure. So it's very similar. It's that kind of comparison is appropriate, I think, when it comes to Nostr and other competing networks.
Sup, freaks? This rip of TFTC was brought to you by our good friends at Bitkey. Bitkey makes Bitcoin easy to use and hard to lose. It is a hardware wallet that natively embeds into a 2 or 3 multi-sig. You have one key on the hardware wallet, one key on your mobile device, and Block stores a key in the cloud for you. This is an incredible hardware device for your friends and family, or maybe yourself, who have Bitcoin on exchanges and have for a long time, but haven't taken the step to self-custody because they're worried about the complications of setting up a private public key pair, securing that seed phrase, setting up a PIN, setting up a passphrase. Again, Bitkey makes it easy to use, hard to lose. It's the easiest 0 to 1 step, your first step to self-custody. If you have friends and family on the exchanges who haven't moved it off, tell them to pick up a Bitkey. Go to bitkey.world, use the key TFTC20 at checkout for 20% off your order. That's bitkey.world, code TFTC20.
Over 10,000 investors downloaded the original How to Position for the Bitcoin Boom when Bitcoin was just 27K, and it called for 120K plus. That target's now hit. So what's next? Tur de Meester is back with the 2025 edition, refreshed for the mid-cycle moment, packed with new data, new insights, and Tur's latest price outlook. Plus, you'll get exclusive access to Charting Our Way Through Chaos, Tur's new 30-minute Q3 2025 presentation explaining why this bull run might be only just beginning and what forces could push it to the next level. Read the first ever mid-cycle report from Adamant Research at unchained.com/TFTC. That's unchained.com/TFTC. And also, if you're using Unchained, you can use the code TFTC for $50 off any of their services. Go check it out. Matt and I were discussing this in RHR. I think 2 weeks ago. Not at this point, but it feels like when you look at whether it's BlueSky, Farcaster, Base is what is their social network? Is it Base? Is Base the social network? Is Aura?
I think it's still based on Farcaster.
Yeah,
I think it's the same network still.
Yeah, they're all pumping big numbers. But to your point, when you really get down to like brass tacks, like what are these networks? They're Dino, decentralized in name only, and there is a lot of hype around them in the sense that Coinbase is really trying to get people to use Aura and use USDC to do the equivalent of Zaps on that network. But when it comes to true freedom tech, open protocols, like I think it's objectively true that Nostr is a different animal than all of them, even though it doesn't have the adoption of BlueSky. I'm not sure what Coinbase's Zora app is at right now, but I think Nostr is sort of existing somewhat in the background, but has this slow, steady, methodical build out that is well underway. If you actually pay attention and look at the ecosystem and the growth of the ecosystem and the number of apps and different types of apps, more importantly, I think BitChat is a perfect example of just using relays as sort of like a fallback for when you are not in a 30-meter vicinity of the person you're looking to chat with, that the sort of new open web is being built out methodically. It's not getting nearly as much shine as I think it should be getting, but I actually like that too. It reminds me of Bitcoin in the early days where you have this intolerant, transient, not transient, but sort of intransient minority that's really dedicated to building this out. And that's the signal I look for, is like it may not seem like Nostr is as big as these other things, but the sort of effort, the energy focused on ensuring that it gets built out is not only still there, but from my observation, getting stronger by the day.
Yeah, I think many of the comparisons to Bitcoin are appropriate, including this one. Prior to discovering Nostr, I tried to design my own protocol that would kind of attempt to solve these same issues, and my protocol wasn't anywhere near as good as Nostr. It was way too complicated. So when I discovered Nostr, it was like a revelation. I knew right away it was going to work, and I was just interested in how good it could get. But going back to the days when I was trying to come up with my own protocol, I knew that a protocol like this had to be bootstrapped by Bitcoiners. There was just no other way. There was no other group out there that has the culture of both holding keys and running nodes. So we go back to the same, point I made earlier. Farcaster, you mentioned, it's interesting. Farcaster users are holding their keys. So that's good. But who runs the infrastructure? Nobody in the Ethereum land or altcoin land has, the incentives or any interest to run the infrastructure. So you actually end up like a few big players running everything for everyone, and they have pretty much full control over the network. Nostr is different. Nostr is different, without any doubt. You can tell. The specs are being kind of done in the open. It's a little bit of it's as messy of a process as you would expect it to be at this early stage. But things are getting stood up. Things are getting better. The kind of core app experiences are improving, I think, rapidly. Whoever, let's say, has multiple touch points with Nostr, with maybe 6 months in between or something like that, they, I'm sure, are seeing like massive improvements, and that's going to continue, and it's going to accelerate. Just by knowing what's in Primal's roadmap, things are going to get excellent and very interesting. But also many other projects. There are hundreds of them. So it's amazing to see, and I love being a part of this ecosystem.
Well, you alluded to it. Are we allowed to tease what's on the Primal roadmap to anybody?
I guess I did it to myself, didn't I? usually I don't like talking about features that don't exist yet. I prefer to announce availability. But at the high level, at Primal, we would like to lean more into long form content. And we've already done that to an extent with the 2.0 release. We've done a pretty elaborate implementation of long form textual content. So blogs, articles, things like that are a main tab on Primal, and kind of are a first class citizen both for discovery and kind of consumption and so forth. And as of recently, we shipped Primal Studio back in June, a product that's aimed at content creators. So we kind of completed that offering for long form content, where you have kind of professional authoring environment for this type of content. So we'd like to lean deeper into long form content with better support for long form video in Primal 3.0. So that is going to be kind of a main theme. We're going to build essentially a YouTube/Rumble competitor that is fully open and that utilizes, of course, Nostr for kind of publishing and messaging. But when it comes to media hosting, we're using protocols like Blossom, which allow users to post binary content or media content onto multiple kind of media servers, to kind of enhance resiliency and censorship resistance and so forth. So that's the kind of high level theme. And by the way, all of these things already exist on Nostr. The specs are there. There are many clients that do a pretty good job already with videos. We're just building a more integrated experience into Primal so that you can kind of have, feeds, reads, and videos kind of as kind of top level tabs. And maybe I'll kind of give you some thinking behind this. So there are many different directions you can go into with a product like this. Social media these days is defined by feeds, and some products like Instagram or especially TikTok went super far into creating these like very addictive, kind of low consciousness, kind of endless, mindless scrolling type of feeds, because they monetize attention, and that kind of seems to work best there. So in my mind, there's no sense in competing with them in that kind of segment. This isn't something we want to build. And even if we wanted to, we probably couldn't build a better TikTok than TikTok. Like we couldn't, the types of things these guys, the amount of spying on users and kind of the patterns that these guys are willing to do to enable a product like this, we just are not interested in. So I think the correct move for Primal is to go firmly in the opposite direction. So firmly into kind of high signal, nuanced content, long form, high consciousness content that will enable content creators who really wish to provide high signal content to their users. We want Nostr to be the best place for them. So that's what we're building at Primal.
Yeah. And I've seen the benefits of this. I mean, obviously Matt and I, we live stream RHR every week to zap.stream, and the amount of zaps we've been getting week in and week out, I think it's a material amount of money. I think we're each making like anywhere from like 200 to, on good weeks, like $700 a pop, which is crazy. We've gotten 1 million sats in one episode before. And so like there is the ability to not only distribute the content, live stream the content on this distributed open protocol, I mean, you can monetize it in real time. And I've always, we've had these discussions. I've always thought the ability to easily monetize the content by combining Nostr with Bitcoin is going to be the killer app that really takes hold someday. And we're beginning to see it. I think emergence of the vlogs, the vlogs of the last few weeks is evidence of that too. And that's been like a really interesting sort of social experiment on Nostr specifically, like trying to create. And I really like that HODL sort of started this trend. Who knows how long it will last? It will just be a short, ephemeral trend, but I think it's fun nonetheless, but trying to create unique content specific to Nostr that other people sort of pulls people to the protocol because that content's only living there.
He's killing it, isn't he?
Yeah.
And the Bitcoiners who are not on Nostr are missing out. In fact, like he started something that got bigger, and many people are killing it now. It's interesting. I don't know how much staying power it has. Maybe it has a lot, maybe not. But one thing kind of remains constant on Nostr over the past couple of years, 2-3 years that I've been participating in, which is like people are having fun there. Like they're having fun with different things and experimenting with a bunch of stuff. And some of it sticks, some of it doesn't. But similar to what Dorsey was talking about in Twitter's early days, where he said that all of Twitter's features were kind of created by the users. Hashtag or @ mentions and like a bunch of other things were just, the product people observing how the users are using their product and then reacting and kind of tweaking it to make it easier to do the things that the users are already trying to do. So there's so much of that going on in Nostr. So the Nostr user base is kind of, we can say small in kind of global terms, but very formidable in terms of how enthusiastic the users are, in terms of how technically competent many of them are. It's very interesting to build for Nostr because many Nostr users are actually developers. So you get this very competent feedback constantly that helps you improve the product and so forth. And I was kind of looking at it and comparing it to, let's say, Bitcoin Twitter. Just kind of to ballpark things, to try to understand, the relative sizes of these communities, and I would say it's formidable. So, for order of magnitude, kind of some of the best estimates I could get to for Bitcoin Twitter is about 150,000 active users, and Nostr has about half of that probably. In terms of active users, we might be undercounting Nostr users too. It could be that some new users who just joined didn't quite make it fully into the web of trust in terms of being followed by other accounts and so forth. So we might be undercutting it, but let's say it's half. And that means if you're a Bitcoin content creator and you're not a Nostr, well, you're missing out on probably half of the potential audience that you could have. And on top of that, you get kind of new people that are getting into Nostr who are not Bitcoiners, who are getting into Bitcoin kind of just because they end up hanging out with a bunch of Bitcoiners on Nostr and kind of get into it. We have many such cases. So there's that as well. And I don't know if the Bitcoin Twitter group is growing or if it's been kind of similar size over the years. But I think it's, like I said, interesting to compare these two groups. And Nostr is already formidable. And only one of those groups is holding the keys to their speech.
Sup, freaks? This rip was brought to you by our good friends at Obscura. Obscura is the first VPN that can't log your activity by design. Instead of empty promises, Obscura fully embraces the Bitcoiner don't trust, verify mantra. They can't log your traffic, even if they tried. Obscura believes that user data is toxic waste. In addition to private payments via Lightning, you can sign up with an account without having to give any personal identifying information. It's a beautiful thing. It's the VPN I use every day. It's incredibly fast. You can go on streaming sites with it. They don't say, hey, you've got a VPN. It just works. So go to obscura.net. Use the code TFTC25 for 25% off an annual subscription. Obscura.net. Use the code TFTC25 for 25% off an annual subscription.
Sup, freaks? Guess what? We launched a browser extension. It's called Opportunity Cost, and it helps you see the true cost of everything in Bitcoin. Convert prices to Bitcoin as you browse the web. Opportunity Cost automatically displays fiat prices in Bitcoin or sats, helping you think in a Bitcoin standard. It works on Amazon, Zillow, X, your bank account, QuickBooks. You can convert everything to Bitcoin. It's really cool. It's also 100% open source, MIT license. We don't collect any data. All of the conversions happen in your browser on your local device. It's a great way to recalibrate your life and begin thinking in sats. Go check it out at opportunitycost.app. That's opportunitycost.app.
And that's like the big question going back to when we started the conversation on. And I wonder if the sort of Orwellian pressures that are beginning to increase, particularly in Europe, UK specifically, do they drive people to Nostr? And that's why I wanted to catch up. And this was like a month ago when the age verification laws, but things seemed to be escalating. There was a woman, the Commissioner of Children in England was on the BBC 2 days ago, vehemently expressing her desire to put age verification on VPNs, which would render VPN services moot in the first place. And I was telling you, the second biggest demo that we have here at TFTC beyond the United States is the UK. And I'm curious if you've seen any indication that people are experiencing these Orwellian pressures and falling back to open protocols like Nostr.
So we've experienced some growth on Nostr in the past few weeks, and we've been trying to kind of figure out what to attribute this to. Within the Primal team, we're seeing kind of significantly higher user numbers. And then we don't do any tracking, so we don't really know where these people are coming from, but we're trying to decipher if it's all American Hodl bringing new users through his vlogs, or in fact this phenomenon started happening prior to him starting vlogging. So probably that's not the answer. Could be a combination of things, but I think it's a factor that many people who are aware of where these types of things are leading to in these countries, and outside of these countries too, are starting to look at alternatives, and those who have done enough research and critical thinking might be realizing that Nostr is the best alternative there. So yeah, we are seeing increased user numbers, and probably these new policies in UK, Europe, I think Australia too, have something to do with it.
Yeah. I would hope that people recognize that these tools are there, because it is crazy. Like you can't voice your displeasure in these countries without being put on a list and having the police come knock on your door, which is probably good. Building on that point, like in terms of onboarding the Nostr for people in these countries, again, you have a private public key pair, and you can attach some human readable name to your profile. And so like best practices, probably don't put your real name, spin up a NIM.
Yeah, I mean, that the process of onboarding itself is the first step. That right away you can see the difference between the centralized legacy platforms and open protocols. When you create an account on X, let's say, you're given this account by this corporation. This is something that they give to you, and something that they can take away from you at any point. In contrast, when you're on an open protocol like Nostr, you claim your key pair. You take this massive number out of the universe, and that's your private key. So you've claimed some territory in this like massively large namespace or of numbers, and then you've claimed something, and this is yours, and then you defend it. This is, what a stark contrast between these two, and that everything is downstream from there. So I think that holding our keys and existing and operating with these open protocols is our only chance to assert and reclaim our sovereignty, both in terms of money and transactions and wealth, as well as speech and online communication and publishing. There's just no other way. We need to all step up and be sovereign online. Well, those of us who are interested in that seems to be like a small minority currently, but that's fine. Potentially, I think I'm trying to quantify these numbers too. It's like, how big is the kind of world population who's even interested in this? And it's far from a majority currently. Maybe the pain is not big enough for most people to be interested in this. But I think the silver lining of, things like COVID, like what we went through during the few years of COVID, is that many people woke up. And if, let's say, prior to this, maybe 1% of the population was interested in these types of topics and asserting their sovereignty and so forth, now we have multiples of that. Maybe we have 5% of people. So still a minority, but it's 5 times more. And from that standpoint, things are moving in the right direction. And the crazier these policies get, the more people we're going to have who care about this. So all we need to do is to make sure that the tools exist for them to use when they're ready to, and that the infrastructure is robust, et cetera, et cetera. So I kind of tend to take the optimistic point of view behind all of this, even though, you see some of these things go down and it's like, it could feel desperate, like what's happening in the UK, that's wild. And I'm kind of shocked that people don't push back harder. But then you look back at COVID and go like, oh yeah, people take a lot.
Yeah. People do take, and it's shocking. And that's what I wonder is, like, does the quality of life have to become so degraded that you're like forced to push back and find these tools? But we don't have to belabor the negative. Let's talk about potentially something more positive and negative. I think this is probably one of the sharpest double-edged swords that exist in the world today, which is AI. In the intersection of AI and Bitcoin, AI and Nostr, different ways to leverage it. We've been leaning into AI-generated video to get the Bitcoin message out there or help people understand the problems that Bitcoin is attempting to solve. And then there's many other ways we use AI on the back end to sort of automate processes. What as it pertains to AI, I think there's 3 things I'm interested to hear from you. Like, how at Primal are you guys leveraging it, like, to build the business? I turn these off. 2, what have you seen in terms of unique AI applications in the Nostr landscape? And then 3, like, what are your thoughts on, like, the cool use cases of AI, to particularly from a marketing propaganda perspective, that people should be leaning into to draw people to Nostr and other open protocols?
Yeah, I think those AI videos are probably a good example of how quickly things are evolving there and how quickly these tools are getting better. Like a few months ago, you'd see those videos and they were just terrible. And now we're at the point where they're not terrible. They're actually pretty reasonable, but you can tell it's AI. And probably won't be long before they get much better, even from here. So I think when it comes to AI and the and how it relates to open networks like Nostr, I think there's something very interesting at the intersection of open source AI models and open data, and open kind of social graphs and open kind of user directories and things like that. I think it's leveling the playing field quite a bit. It has the potential to do that. So of course, currently only the biggest companies have the resources to train new AI models. And they, even though they all LARP about openness, they kind of keep the kind of most powerful models closed and kind of in control. So that's an interesting dynamic. And then, we see that these models coming out from China, these guys are kind of trying to catch up, and they have different approaches because they don't have access to that much kind of compute power, because in theory, at least, they can get access to the same GPUs, but they have unlimited, electricity almost. And then they're kind of forced to optimize their algorithms a little bit better. So we had this situation with DeepSeek a few months ago, which was as good as the best closed models in the West for a week or two. You kind of have to take these snapshots in time and kind of assess who is where, and these things move almost on a weekly basis. So you asked about Primal. So we do what you would expect a company like Primal to do. So we use, of course, AI tools for some of our internal kind of coding efforts and QA and testing and stuff like that, as you would expect. We're not really vibe coding our products. We're doing it the old-fashioned way by hand, but there's a lot of kind of AI tools that you can use in the process to make you more productive as a developer. So there's that. We're looking at automating some of our business processes using AI tools, and we are kind of at the beginning of that. We're still, a very small company. We're 8 people. And I think what's interesting, standing up a new company like this at this particular moment in time, I think it will, and these types of tools will enable a company like Primal and many other companies there. In Nostr alone, there's probably half a dozen companies of our size or bigger. So these types of tools will enable companies of our size, very tiny companies, to serve millions of users, just because we can leverage, our kind of power using the tools. So that's exciting, I think. And then, of course, we need to productize some of this and offer capabilities to our users. So, for example, something like Grok is extremely powerful on X. That's probably the best feature on X currently, I think. It would be great to have something like this on an open network based on an open source model. So this is something that we will be looking at, down the line at some point when we after we ship 3.0 with video capabilities and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of the range of AI thinking that we're and kind of leveraging that we're doing at the moment.
Grok, is this true? Maybe the Nostr version should be Korg. Korg, is this true? It is fascinating, and it's really cool to see, like, to your point of the individual users having agency, not only via private public key pairs and just joining a protocol like Nostr and having that freedom. You see users wanting to give back, and I saw one of a Primal user make a commercial for Primal using these AI generated videos. The one with the zoo freeing the animals from the cages. That was really well done.
That was incredible. Like, I woke up one morning and opened Primal, and I saw that, and I was like, man, like, how amazing. Our users are creating this type of content, and the message was super crisp. It was, I recommend everyone to go check it out, because it sort of kind of leaned into this whole idea of, we're the most connected we've ever been, but it's also superficial, and the level of actual human connection is probably at an all-time low. Like, when you look at the rates of young people getting married and having kids and stuff like that. Like these things are not looking great. So anyway, I'm butchering the message here. Everyone should check out this video that was created by one of our users. We reposted it on the Primal account and also my own. It's extremely rewarding, because as you know, we are constantly in touch, Marty. It's a lot of hard work. Like we work night and day to build these tools so they are, at the level of usability that users are used to. And the bar for usability is being set by these multi-billion-dollar companies who've been at it for, 10 years plus. And they have, and they're dealing with just like a closed, centralized system, which is easier to develop against. In contrast, we have, a small group of people, mind you, in a bigger community, which is all open sourced, trying to catch up in terms of feature sets and UX and stuff like that, performance. So we work day and night, and it's nice. Like occasionally, we get these incredibly rewarding moments when we observe people use our products and also appreciate our products enough to put in the work to create these types of this type of content. So that was amazing to see.
Yeah, and that's what you want to see too. Like that's a signal. Like, all right, we're on the right path. People, feel so passionate about the product, the protocol, that they're out there spending their time, money, and effort to make sure that they can help push it along, which is going back to your point about the early days of Twitter. That's sort of what you want to see.
It's incredible. And, Sam Altman, of all people, made a really good point years ago in some presentation. Even though we probably don't see eye to eye in just about anything, this point made sense to me, and I remember it frequently, which is he was trying to, I forgot, it was some sort of presentation where probably to entrepreneurs or investors, I forgot, but it was about how to spot fads, like in terms of like big waves that are coming in, how to distinguish between something that's going to be a fad, it's going to taper off, versus something that's going to really take off. Like in the early days, you as let's say an entrepreneur, you're investing your everything, all your time, probably wealth and so forth, to go in a certain direction. Or as an investor, you're kind of putting your LP's capital on the line and so forth. So how can you tell if, of course, you need to do it early for this to make sense. So you're early. So how can you tell if something is going to be big or if it's going to taper off to nothing? And he said a very good indicator is how passionate the early adopters are. That's what separates the iPhone from VR sets. VR sets, even though quite a few got sold, but they're all kind of sitting on a shelf somewhere collecting dust. There just wasn't the signal was there from the early days, like the early adopters, even though they bought the sets, they were not that excited about them. Whereas, when the iPhone got released, everybody told all their friends and, was flexing their new device and so forth. So I think that's correct. That's the correct assessment. And then if you look at Nostr's user base, well, we can only be super bullish about where this is going.
Yeah. A lot of power users. And and again, going back to the point I made earlier of, if you're not paying attention, you probably should be, because if you observe over time, the amount of effort being put into building out the protocol, building out apps like Primal, but other non-social media related apps as well, like it's growing. And it's becoming more robust in terms of the sort of optionality of different ways you can interact with the protocol. And one thing, again, it's already saying, I think the first real market is the market for attention on Nostr, and monetize via apps. But it's one thing that makes a ton of sense to me is like Nostr is this open protocol to create marketplaces. The killer marketplace right now is posting content and getting zapped for it, but you're beginning to see the emergence of data vending machines to buy AI compute. Still early days there, but even physical marketplaces, people selling physical goods using Nostr and the MPub sort of web of trust to facilitate trade. And just curious to hear from you, like what is your perspective on Nostr as a marketplace and what you're seeing in terms of that maturing?
So just to back up a little bit, you mentioned AI, Nostr, and Bitcoin. The intersection of those three things is extremely exciting, right? Because AI agents need some self-sovereign money to, do their work. And, especially the more sophisticated they get, the less likely is that they'll accept Solana or USD, right? So, and then the ability to interface with other systems in an open manner and kind of plug into open networks without requiring access to proprietary APIs that can be switched off, right? You have to be bullish about the intersection of those three technologies. And as far as marketplaces are concerned, there are already marketplaces on Nostr. And the ability to utilize this open social graph and open web of trust as it grows to create more powerful marketplaces is there, right? So, for example, let's take Amazon product reviews, right? If currently they're built in a closed silo by Amazon, and that's it. Basically, you go and look at a product, and they sort those reviews in a couple different ways. But basically, you're extremely unlikely to see anyone there among the reviewers who you know. How amazing would it be if you were to look at a product or a travel destination or anything else that where user input and user reviews are kind of relevant and important in your decision making, and to have these things sorted by your web of trust, by the people that you are connected to in some ways, and so that you can see how they are valuing a certain product or service. So this is already being built on Nostr, and you can tell how when the internet gets open again because of Nostr, how glorious this is going to be. And guys like Alex Svetsky with his Atlantis project are doing something like this. This is a very interesting project on Nostr that people should check out, that kind of showcases the versatility of the protocol. It's not just Twitter clones that are being built on Nostr. You can literally build anything, and the killer feature of Nostr isn't necessarily censorship resistance. This is kind of what people talk about a lot. I think the killer feature is openness. The fact that all of this data is open and can be combined in a number of different ways to build new experiences and new product categories that are not even possible currently when you deal with a bunch of kind of closed silos.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And it's not to say that censorship resistance doesn't exist and it's not a killer app, but I think the openness, the flexibility with which that gives end users, and probably more importantly builders, is extremely powerful.
Yeah. Sovereignty for users, builders, and creators is a big deal. I agree.
I feel like we do this every time you come on, but I think in terms of forward-looking guidance, we're gonna adopt some Fed speak here. Forward guidance on
dot plot coming up.
what do you see happening in Primal over the next year, Nostr generally over the next year, catalyst for more people waking up to this? Is it possible to tell, or do you even worry about it? Is it just heads down, take it day by day, brick by brick?
Yeah, it's very hard to predict the future here unless you're building it, of course. So I have some visibility in what's in Primal's roadmap, of course. But, if you asked me 3 months ago to predict kind of the most exciting apps on Nostr, I would have not said BitChat and Shakespeare. I would have said something different. So like when you have such an open network with so many creative people participating and building without permission, the activity of trying to predict what they're going to build is frivolous. Basically, you're not going to make it. I think it's still useful in some ways to kind of brainstorm and try to imagine things, but the takeaway here is that we're going to get surprised by some apps that nobody saw coming that are just taking off, and that's so amazing to see, because every such app is adding more gravity to the network. It's bringing in new users potentially, and then those users might kind of show up for BitChat but stay for other things, for vlogs. And as for Primal, so like I said, this long form, high signal content is something that we really want to lean into as hard as possible. So we want to create the best possible user experiences for finding and consuming high signal long form content. This includes text and video and potentially sound down the road and so forth. We also want to build great tools for content creators to be able to post and manage this type of content on Nostr in a way that kind of feels familiar from kind of the more centralized legacy platforms. So basically, to bring the long form content UX for both users and creators in kind of highly polished shape is our goal. And then to lean even deeper into it. So basically, what I'd love to see is I'd love Nostr to become the best place for content creators who wish to create high signal content for their users. And part of it is going to be, of course, in addition to Zaps, the micropayments that you mentioned that people can do on an ad hoc basis for a particular piece of content. In addition to that, we want to have paid subscriptions for content creators so that creators can create one or more paid tiers and create kind of simple rules regarding how their content is distributed so that they can better monetize the work that they do directly with their audience. So those are kind of implementing all of the above in a way that's polished and just works, but also open. So, when we say paid tiers, these are not Primal, paid tiers. They're Nostr open paid tiers that should work in any other Nostr client. So the specs for this already exist. We need to just lean in and kind of implement them correctly. So implementing all of the above is quite a bit of work. So we have our hands full at Primal, just kind of doing these relatively obvious things. But that's kind of been the MO at Primal, where we try to make basic things work well. That's at the high level, that's what we do with Primal.
Yeah. No, and the Fountain guys, they've released paid tiers for the podcast, and we implemented that here at TFTC and at RHR. So if you're listening and you want ad free episodes day early, ad-free day early episodes of TFTC. Subscribe via Fountain. Ad-free episodes of RHR. Subscribe via Fountain. But I think
Love it.
the reason I bring it up, in Fountain, for anybody who's unaware, is a podcasting app that is also a Nostr client. So it's been really cool to lean into that. But from the content creator perspective, I've been talking to Oscar and Nick from Fountain about this. Like, the onus is on us as well to really drive people to these clients. And that's, I think I'm beginning to really understand this with Fountain specifically. It's like, you can actually make more money, more Bitcoin at the end of the day by participating. It's not only, the onus is not only on Miljan, Oscar, and others building, Gleason, Jeff building all these clients. It's on the end users really driving their audience. And so that's one thing we've made a point of, and we've actually see it convert into higher revenue. It's like pumping, like, hey, come support us on Nostr via Fountain, and you'll get a better product if you do these paid tiers. And it's led to more revenue for us. But the overall point being is, the onus isn't only on Miljan and others building out these clients. It's on us as power users really trying to drive our audience there as well with simple calls to action. And we've seen it converting pretty well in the last 2 weeks as we've been doing it more.
Let's go. I love Fountain. It's another one, kind of a very highly polished Nostr client. They existed prior to Nostr, but when Nostr kind of took off, they moved their membership over to Nostr, and they are using Nostr feeds now, and they're using Nostr events for likes and trending things, also for live streams. It's great to see. And again, another example of the versatility of this protocol. Just imagine everything, all the apps, all the products you're using, if they were on the same open network and you could use the same online identity controlled by you to access all of these apps and services. That's what we're building on Nostr.
Yeah, and I think just building on the Fountain example, it's really cool because I'll go into Primal, I'll check my notifications, and I'll see somebody write a comment, and there will be a Fountain link to a particular episode, and they're commenting on that episode, so I can see it in Primal, and it's just like in the stream of all my other notifications, people zapping, liking, sharing posts. But then I'll go over to Fountain, and to speak to the versatility of the protocol, like that comment will be in a specific episode. Like I'll go into an episode, that one comment that was in a flood of other notifications on Primal will be sort of consolidated with other comments specific to that episode in the Fountain client, and it'll aggregate the amount of sats that were zapped to that particular episode, and you get like a consolidated sort of conversation around that particular episode in Fountain. But in Primal, it's sort of just in the flood of everything else happening. And so I think that's like a really stark example of the versatility you can get with these clients.
Yeah, what a great example.
Yeah.
Because what actually happens in this open network is these artifacts, the comments, the zaps, the episodes, the posts exist as kind of signed messages that are kind of published to relays. And every app developer gets to decide how to present them to their user. And the different apps have different competencies and different kind of points of view in terms of how the data should be presented. So Primal is mostly kind of a social media client with notification feeds and stuff like that. So as Marty described, it makes sense for us to display these events in that form. But Fountain is predominantly like a music/podcast player, and they're plugging into the same data, but they're showing it in a way that makes sense for their use case. And it's a kind of mind-blowing moment for a lot of Nostr users when they log in with their private key in another app and see a bunch of useful content already there for them. And it's sort of like the app already understands who they are. And there are many such cases. There is another, for example, let's say if we look at long form textual content like blogs, articles, and so forth, there are already closed legacy platforms that do a pretty good job in this area, like Substack or Medium. And when you post an article, people can comment, people can highlight, and all of those comments and highlights get kind of trapped inside of that closed silo, and no one will kind of ever see them outside of it. And as a consequence, that you don't even get that much even traffic, the many users kind of using these features, where in contrast on Nostr, you publish your article, it exists on as a signed event on any Nostr relay, and then any app developer can use that artifact in any way that makes sense within their app. Within Primal, we decided to make long form articles first-class citizen within Primal, so we kind of have a dedicated tab and you can list all of those things there. But essentially, in other clients, people might decide to do it differently. But then when you interact with that article, when you post a reply, or even when you do a highlight, that highlight is a Nostr event, that's a signed event that gets published to a relay, and then it exists in this open network for anyone to kind of see and interact with, and there's all kinds of experiences that can be created around that highlight alone. For example, Pablo's highlighter is a Nostr app that's kind of for creators, but also for consumption, that kind of creates this whole dedicated UX around highlights, right? There's a highlight feed and so forth. So these are just some examples where we're scratching the surface of what can be done when all of this exists on an open network. And we're very early still. We're still in the kind of process of catching up to the legacy kind of closed players in terms of capabilities and UX. But at some point soon, we will have caught up, and when we overtake them, it will be very stark. It will be about implementing experiences that are just not possible in closed silos. So all of this is very exciting.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, again, I don't want to belabor the Fountain point, but like, it is so cool going from like Primal to Fountain. It's like, oh, I saw this in Primal. Like it's almost like, as a creator, I think I'll just be checking notifications on Primal. I'll see that some Fountain related link is in a notification that like reminds me, like, all right, I got to go over to this client to see how this particular episode's doing. And then I go over to Fountain and I get like a consolidated sort of diagnosis on a particular episode, and a notification in Primal sort of led me to go take that action. And then this sort of blurs the line of what products are. And we've talked about this before, but like, what is a business at the end of the day, and how are businesses going to be created in the future? And I think, as you were describing, the sort of different ways in which this is all compatible and interoperable with each other, I think the best business builders in the future is going to be incredible curators, right? Like curating specific experiences for specific types of users and specific contexts, and it's just having like a curative mind that is really going to set people apart.
I agree. We are seeing proliferation of content, not least of which is a bunch of AI slop out there, but that's getting better too. But in a sense where, curation becomes a very important feature, maybe the feature, right? Like, so I keep repeating, one of our goals at Primal is to enable people to find high signal content that's relevant to them, right? So, and then to provide a great user experience around consuming it and also creating it for creators. Yeah.
Well, on that note, disclaimer, 1031 is an investor in Primal, but this is an unbiased opinion, putting my TFTC newsletter writing hat on. The Primal publisher is the best I've come across on Nostr. You've made it so easy to just upload and publish the content in a very intuitive way. As somebody who's worked with a bunch of different back-end publishers, not only on Nostr, but MailChimp, WordPress, Ghost, you've made it very simple, very intuitive. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Marty. That was a lot of work, but it's all open source. By the way, like everything that we do at Primal is open sourced under the MIT license, which is the most permissive license. So that means that anyone can take any part of our code, any part of our product, and do anything they want with it, including building competing products. Let's go. I mean, this is how this entire network is being built. And we are certainly standing on the shoulders of many giants to even be here. So it's good vibes all around. And I think good business in the long run as well, to build out this open network in an open manner and bring the capabilities forward so that people can have the tools they need in their time of need, which seems to be about now.
Yeah. If you're out there, you're not on Nostr yet, you're living in one of these countries, UK, I know you're second in our audience. I know there's some of you out there listening. If you're not on Nostr, get on. You want to be on before you need it. And you already need it, but you may need it more in the relatively short term. Miljan, thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for joining me again. Any final thoughts for the freaks out there?
Well, thanks for having me, Marty. That was great. I will say, like you said, thank you for doing what you're doing, and like that's acknowledged. Appreciate that. Thank you, Marty, for doing what you're doing. All of the things that you do. Like, I grew up in Bitcoin listening to you and Matt day in, day out, or week in, week out, back from 2017. You guys helped me avoid all the shitcoinery, just because the points you guys were making just made sense to me. And I was mildly interested in Ethereum from the technology point of view until I figured out that both the tech and the people behind it are, not something I want to invest time in. So there must be countless people who you guys helped educate on these topics. And I'm super grateful to be a 1031 portfolio company. I think 1031 really stands out as a venture investor in the space with high principles. And you guys really, many out there LARP about being founder friendly and kind of mission aligned. You guys walk the walk. So thank you, and Matt and the rest of the 1031 team for all your support. Many more years of development, and building to come. So thanks again, and thanks for having me on the show as well.
Well, Miljan, it's an honor and a privilege to be walking the walk with you, sir. We're going to win.
Let's go.
Peace and love, freaks.
Okay. Freaks, thank you for listening to the show. I hope you liked it. If you did like it, please make sure you subscribe, rate, review the show. It helps us out a lot. And also, if you like these conversations, I've come to realize that many people listen to the podcast. They don't know we have another sort of layer of this media company. We have the newsletter, the Bitcoin Brief. Go to tftc.io. Make sure you subscribe there. A lot of the topics that are discussed on this podcast, I write about 5 days a week in the newsletter. We also have the TFTC Elite tier. If you sign up for that, become a member. We have a private Discord server for the elite freaks out there where we're dropping ad-free versions of this show and having discussions about everything we talk about. A day early. Logan wanted me to make sure if you want to get the show a day early, become a TFTC Elite member. You will get that. We have our Discord server. Right now it's conversation between myself and TFTC Elite tier members, but we're going to expand that. We'll probably do closed Q&As with people in the industry. I may be doing Macro Mondays. So join us. Go to tftc.io. Subscribe. Find the button in the top right corner of the website. Become a TFTC Elite member. Thank you for joining us. Okay.